Hi, my name is Jack McLean and I'm the founder of Prepare Like a Pro. Growing up, I loved playing cricket and football and had a strong passion for helping others. Over the past 11 years working in the industry, I've been lucky enough to have worked alongside Sean Murphy, the head strength and conditioning coach at Essendon, Luke Boyd, physical performance manager at Hawthorn, and interned under Andrew Russell, high performance director at Carlton. I started Prepare Like a Pro after my time as a strength and conditioning coach at Hawthorn Football Club to help developing footballers gain a competitive edge with AFL standard preparation methods. If you're a developing footballer wanting to take your game to the next level, we'd love to help you. At Prepare Like a Pro, you can expect to not only improve your athleticism, but also lower your risk of injury or overload. There are training programs suitable for every level of involvement. I would love to help you choose the one that best suits your goals and personal motivation. Head to our Inquire Now page and I'll get back to you soon. Welcome, Sam. Thanks for jumping on, mate.
Thanks, mate. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. How's everything going?
Good, yeah, not bad. Just in another rehab program at the moment, which we can talk about a bit later. But things are going well.
Awesome, mate. Well, yeah, thanks for jumping on, and really looking forward to this chat. We'll start at the very beginning. At what age did you start playing footy, and when did you discover you had a passion to want to play at the highest level?
Yeah, so I'd have to go back to early days. Footy for me started in the backyard of my family home in Diamond Creek. I grew up with three brothers and an old man who just loved footy. So, playing in the backyard and going to Collingwood games every week or second week was our thing. And that's where it all started. The passion came from for me. And that's largely why, I got into junior footy, and throughout most of my junior career, it was, that was why I played, for the pure enjoyment of the game, no other reason. That dream of being an AFL footballer was there to an extent. It was always a bit of a dream, but never really a realistic goal until probably later on when I started playing some more high-level footy around sort of 16 years old. And as the opportunity sort of came, that's when things got, I guess, a bit more serious. And when I started, working more towards, the realistic goal of trying to be an AFL footballer.
Yeah, fantastic. And it'll be good to go through the start, your junior
footy, like you mentioned, you had a strong passion for the game, playing in the backyard and playing with mates and your family, your dad. What age did you recognise that you had a talent for the game? And was it someone, like, did you recognise that yourself, or was it more external, people pumping you up and giving you a bit of confidence that it could be something you could do as a career?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, probably more from the external, to be honest. People give me a bit of a pump up. I had a lot of probably self-doubt and lack of confidence within my own ability growing up and playing footy. I just played it because I loved it, and probably didn't realise the talent that I had from a young age. And so for sure, I think getting the recognition from others, helped early on. And I'm in a place now where I've built that confidence within myself, which we can go into a bit later with where I'm at the moment. But back then, when I got a bit of recognition around 15, 16 years old, I was playing at Research Junior Footy Club, and that led to playing for the NFL representative side. That led to playing for the Northern Knights in the TSC Cup, and that was a big step forward for me. That whole environment, it's a lot more serious. Everyone's there for mostly the same reason of trying to get drafted. And personally, I didn't, I guess at that time, enjoy the experience as much, because it was more of that kind of selfish environment and guys, trying to get that ultimate goal. So you lose a bit of team culture and team atmosphere. But, that was the pathway that had to be taken to make it to the top level. And I still met some outstanding people and had some awesome times there. So I'm incredibly grateful for that experience. But certainly some people along the way definitely instilled the confidence within me. And that was massive with, taking the limitations off my own game and trying to get the most out of myself.
Yeah. There's a couple of good points that you brought up there for developing footballers tuning in. One, the building the confidence at a young age and how important that is for your game, but also, like how you mentioned, sometimes the environment can take away from the fun of the game. Like you said, with taking it so seriously. But then at the elite level, a lot of players playing at the top try and almost remind them back to when they were a kid and just playing the game, opposed to treating it like a job, which is a hard balance to make, obviously, but can help your performance. So we'll start with the confidence side of things. What are some ways for those that are a bit down in confidence, maybe from a slump in form or rehabbing off an injury where they've had time out of the game, or now with COVID, I guess there's more layoff with games, and confidence can be a bit of a roller coaster. Looking back now, what are some things that you can do to improve your confidence that you wish you had those tools when you were younger?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It's impossible just to say to someone, be confident, and they suddenly can just turn a switch and start being confident. So there's lots of things within that help build it. And it's certainly not easy, something that I still, still a challenge for me within playing AFL football to be confident in everything I do out in the field. So the things I would say is just try not to have that fear of judgment, fear of making mistakes, because it's the best way that you learn. And the more you learn and gain knowledge and experience, the more confident you're going to become. One of, I guess, one person that influenced me a lot throughout my career was Ross Lyon, and he used to always say confidence comes from action. And I used to think about it a lot, and it's just so true. If I can give the example of, say, goal kicking, you're going to be more confident going out and having a set shot on goal on the weekend if you've put through 20 set shots during the week than if you've done nothing. And so it comes from action, getting to work and repetition and practice, and that will help with confidence massively. And then and it is a little bit of a mindset shift as well. You just kind of have to back yourself in a bit. And like I said at the start, that fear of making mistakes or asking silly questions or whatever it is, you have to just kind of have a bit of courage and find your way through that.
Yeah, I love that, mate. That's a great little mantra to go by. It comes from action, and I think that's probably no more important time than now, because sometimes with COVID, you are taken away with things that you can do in your normal routine. But if you can still focus on the things that you can do in a lockdown or a quarantine phase to help your game, because there's a lot of times people are playing footy at the highest level, community base, semi-professional, where they might only get one session in a week before they're playing a game. So that's a great advice, mate. Thanks for sharing that. It's always good to have an action, something to take away as well. So that's a good something for the guys listening to write down. And what about from what was the other second point that we were thinking about there? You said the mental lapse there.
That's all right. I think you mentioned early on about the passion, enjoyment for the game, and then you talk about goals.
Having that balance. Yeah, so like you said, the environment can sometimes be so serious, and you can lose that fun for the game.
Yeah.
So how important is it to enjoy the game of football for your performance, and what are some ways that you can do to help ensure that you're still playing the game that you love and prolonging that rather than taking it too seriously?
Yeah, so it's an absolutely critical point. You have to enjoy what you do. If you don't, you'll just be chewed out of the system. You'll hate it, and you'll resent yourself for doing it. It's to have that passion and enjoyment for the game. It's so important. I say to people sometimes it doesn't have to be your one true love, but you really do have to love doing it. So I suppose the things, that from that side of it to really boost that balance and make sure you're still enjoying it, as we spoke about, is going back to remembering the times that when you did love playing footy as a kid, and those moments in the backyard, or whatever those most cherished memories are, is continually bring those up. And I think a person who I've done a fair bit of research on recently, Ben Crow, who's a bit of a mindset coach, he has this little exercise, and it's just about thinking about your earliest, happiest memory, and then associating some words and feelings with that, and then using those every day as a reminder of you when you're your best, and when you're feeling your best, and why you're doing what you're doing, which I think is a really cool exercise. And and sometimes I think you just things are going to go wrong. There's things out of your control that there's nothing you can do about it, and you really just have to accept it, and sometimes have a little bit more, I think, of not a carefree, but more of a relaxed attitude towards things, and get a bit of perspective. I'm massive on knowing that for me, there's more to life than just football. So that whole balance is critical, and little exercises like that can keep a bit of perspective, gratitude, and all those sorts of things.
Yeah, I love the fact that you're into Ben's work. He did a little bit of work at Hawthorn, and I did his online masterclass during the lockdown last year, which was awesome to see. Like, he had people from all over the world, over 100 people on Zoom following his, what you're talking about there, the power of perception, and another topic that's probably no more important than understanding what your enjoyment, and to the core, what do you love doing, and the power that can bring. So thanks, mate. Thanks for sharing. Who else have been some strong influences to your game? I know at Boxhill you had a few guys there that that helped you a lot. Do you want to share those?
Yeah, for sure. So I'd say my few years at Boxhill was probably where I developed the most as a footballer and as a person. I going through high school and playing footy within that sort of age level, I didn't really get much insight into the mental side of the game, which is so massive for me now. And I've learned so much from a few people at Boxhill. If I can name a few people, I'd say probably less so from a mental side, but more from just a football, I guess, physical and skill and craft and knowledge of the game point of view. Marco Bello, who was a head coach for me for a couple of years, and Chris Newman were massive. And Sean Murphy is then the other one from probably the mental side of the game that had a huge influence on me. He was incredibly supportive of the lifestyle I had at the time, which was pretty challenging for me, which entailed 3 part-time jobs, studying full-time at uni, and playing at Boxhill, trying to compete with the best sort of players going around. So I found that incredibly challenging, but he gave me that support and that feeling of comfort that I didn't have to be on 100% of the time whilst at the club. And if I was having a bad day, if I was tired or sore, he made the decisions for me where I could have a night off training or take it a bit easier, just to make sure that I was getting the most out of myself when the important times came. And I think he also was probably the first person that really instilled recovery into me. So I reckon that was drilled into me from a younger age, but he really got through to me about sleep and diet, balance, work-life balance, and those lessons I still, hold so valuable today, and I'm still building on them. But it really gave me that insight into, there's more than just, just trying to get on with things and train, 100% all the time. And at the end of the day, just tires yourself out. I learned the hard way in some ways. One of my years at Boxhill, I think I got tonsillitis, and then that led to glandular fever, and there was some hard months in there, and I purely think that was from just getting so stressed and tired down. And Sean was massive in helping me get through those periods, and then really taught me that, to recognize when things weren't going so well, so I could fix them quickly, because the longer you leave them, the more it can spiral out of control into a real problem. So he was a massive influence, and he's a good friend of mine as well, so I'll have to chat to him soon.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a good man, Murph. And he's helped me out a lot as well. I love his approach. For the S&Cs that are listening, strength and conditioning coaches that are wanting to get better as coaches, from an athlete's point of view, you mentioned that you'd heard those things before, but Murph had a great way of communicating and engaging you to make change. Looking back now, was there anything that he did differently, or why did he make a stronger impact on you in that space?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I would say the most important thing was the relationship that we had. We built a really strong relationship. We respected each other. We were really open with each other, and that just allowed for those harder conversations to happen. And then the trust for, say, me to have a night off training, or a bit of an easier night, or whatever it was. If I was a fair few times, I was stuck in a chemistry lab in the city and couldn't make training until about an hour late. And he was just incredibly supportive and made me feel really comfortable with it. And I would say, you can't have those conversations and have, as an athlete, it's difficult to ask for a bit of rest, or, say you're sore, because I know a lot of people I grew up thinking that, you don't complain about anything, you just get on with it. And toughness is, just getting through everything, pushing through the pain. But being able to actually open up to him about it, and then we could have those collaborative conversations was massive.
Yeah, it's such a good point. And like you mentioned, the environment of a VFL footballer, mature age player, playing against professionals, but also with the goal of getting drafted, but then also preparing yourself, because it's such a low probability to get drafted. You're preparing for your life outside of footy too, so you can, like, it's conducive to stress, just because you simply have to be. You almost got to set yourself up in a few different avenues rather than pouring all your energy into one. How do you manage that balance and the ability to like you said, the support helps, but personally, what did you do to get yourself to a point where you could still train at a high level, and more importantly, perform each week at a high level while managing those other hats in life?
Yeah. So I would say, initially on your first point, it is so important, those other things, like that low probability of making it is there. And even if you do make it and you play until you're 32, have an unbelievable career, you're still working for 30, 40 years of your life. So it's so important. And I always had that in mind. The things, I suppose, that I did that helped me with that was consolidating like a really solid routine, and just putting some priorities on things at different points in time. And it allowed me then to focus my energy in certain ways, and other things, just to talk about energy inputs and outputs. And there were so many outputs at the time, so finding ways to input, and whether that was having a relaxing night, even just on the couch and watching a movie, just to feel relaxed and get that input back in. But for sure, sleep was critical. So a bit of a routine with sleep to make sure I was getting the best quality that I could, put a really high value on that. Diet, making sure that, on a Melbourne winter morning, getting up early and going to the city on the train, it'd be so easy to skip breakfast, but just making sure I got something in. And all those little pieces just helped with, giving myself the best chance to feel refreshed and energized for when those important, training sessions or games happened. And I think largely in season at Boxhill, I really channeled my energy into just making sure game day I was ready to go. And so that meant that training looked a little different each week. And some weeks, if I was feeling better, I'd do a little bit more. But knowing myself in my body, sort of what I needed, and then making sure when the critical times came, I was ready to go.
Yeah. From a physical point of view, you're a hard worker and you're a dynamic player. So the load on your body per minute compared to a lot of other players would be a lot higher. So have you noticed that in your game, that potentially you don't have to do the same amount of volume as other players in the squad, but as long as the quality's there, your body feels good on game day, and you get a good result with more focus on quality than quantity at times?
Yeah, absolutely. Quality over quantity is a great saying, and it's so important. Everybody's going to be different. For me, it was a little bit more about maybe lessening the load during the week and making sure it was good to go game day. Just with the style of player I became, trying to be explosive and some more high speed out there. And but at the same time, it's a real balance, because one thing I would say, and one thing I've learned the hard way, is the lack of leg weights and so some of that strength and conditioning has probably created challenges for me within the AFL system with injuries. If I developed a little bit of a stronger base, it would have been maybe a little bit more durable within my AFL career. But at the same time, there's things, if I had focused more on that at the time, potentially then at that stage wouldn't have been able to produce what I could on game day, and then it might have led me to not get drafted. So sometimes you can't do everything. You just have to pick what's most important and kind of go with it, and try and find the best balance that you can. But there's two ends to it, and it's kind of just the road that I took. And then since I got to Fremantle, I've been doing everything I can from sort of a strength and conditioning point of view to condition myself. But even now, I have chats with my high performance manager and strength and conditioning staff about the balance of leg weights or load during the week and into games. And it's hard to find the perfect solution. You just got to keep going, trial and error, and something I'm still working on. So it's difficult. It's certainly not easy.
Yeah, it's such a good point you make, and I know guys that have worked in the strength and conditioning space and medical space, like Bruce O'Connor springs to mind. Like, to play more footy, you just got to play more footy. And also near enough is good enough at the elite level a lot of the times, certainly with preparation rehab. And we can at times try and think that, it's the top of the top. We've got to be doing everything at the top of the top, where it's simply just not possible. So like you said, focus on what's important for you. You made a great point that in hindsight, maybe some strength and conditioning would have built resilience, but you don't, then you might be more tired, like you said, and you play such a high speed, high pressure game where you need to be fresh and feeling good on game day to perform at that level and stand out and get noticed. So it's almost like every week's a final in September, really, when you're at that point of your career. So you can understand it. And in terms of the focus of your strengths, when you were trying to get drafted, for the mature age players that are in that position now, where they're thinking, I'm just going to give it one more year, or this is my year that I've got to go all in and get drafted this year, before maybe shifting their focus towards other avenues in life. How much energy did you go towards your strengths as a player, as a mature age player that wanted to get strength to get drafted, and what were those strengths, and how did you go about sharpening your axe, so to speak?
One thing I'd start by saying is that it's super important to focus on your strengths and keep improving those, because they're, when you end up playing a role within a team, they're so specific that you need to be so good at what you do. You need to be the best at those specific, strengths or those roles. So it is still important to work on the things, that you need to improve and keep those in mind. And, it depends on the style of player you are, but certainly focusing on the strengths are critical. For me, growing up, I played half back for most of my juniors, and I played midfield. At the Northern Knights, I played back and then midfield. at Box Hill, I started playing in the midfield, and I missed out on a few drafts. And I remember Marco Bello, the only way he could sort of put me in the senior side at the time in my second year at Box Hill was as a small forward. And it's not something I'd really thought about doing or had played that much of. But I just sort of took the opportunity with both hands and thought, what can I bring myself to this role, and how can I make it my own? And for me, I uncovered a bit of pace and agility within myself, and some pressure and tackle, which, I think those abilities were always there, but just due to the positions I was playing before that, just they never really came to light, I suppose. So
interesting.
It's super, I think, from the perspective of trying to get into the AFL system, I'd say like you need to be really good at a specific role. You don't have to be. I used to think being a bit of a utility, like being able to play any position on the ground was the best thing, and it's still a massive advantage, but it's not worth being, good at three positions than being extremely good or great in one position, I would say. So that shift to playing small forward, in the end was what got me drafted. I don't think if I played midfield for at Box Hill for those few years that I would have been drafted. And what I did within those times was, focus on, why am I still in the team as a small forward? What are they loving about my game? And it was my tackle and pressure at the time. And it was just became more of a focus for me to practice at training, and a mindset about I'm going to own this and I'm going to become the best, or try and become the best in this. And, I would say, I think I ended up getting probably drafted off 2 or 3 games, and 2 of them were one with 17 tackles and one with 13 tackles. So
I think I saw a couple of those live on the
yeah, and it blows my mind now because I'm in the AFL system and I can't get more than 3 or 4 tackles a game, and I'm trying my best. But really focus on those strengths, I think, and do whatever you can to improve them. And if you've got the time in your hands and you want to put in the effort, you can go into watching some of the best players do it, watching some vision, and just gaining as much knowledge as you can, and then channeling that focus at training.
Yeah, I love that, mate. It's such a great insight into your mindset and how you approached that, moving around the different positions just to simply get in the team, which is the VFL system when you're in a aligned club. At times 16, 17 spots are taken. So how do you make the team can sometimes be a simple challenge because there's only 5 spots up for grabs, and maybe the whole back line is AFL players. So you move around, you easily could have, cracked the sads and looked at that and be like, oh, this is ridiculous, and get over it. Whereas you looked at like, nah, this is an opportunity to showcase. They're obviously they've put me in the forward line for a reason. Looking at more like an opportunity rather than sort of complain about it, which is great for those listening, no doubt, to take on board. And actually, interestingly, we had Anthony Scott on, who was also a mature age player, and he had the same mindset where he felt that helped his footy now because he's built that base, and then now he's more a sort of a specialist, like you're saying, the importance of having your strengths. And potentially it doesn't have to happen at 12 years old to work out what position you are. You could find out a few different positions over time, and your best position will come at the right time for you. So thanks for sharing that, mate. And that was a great little insight.